This is the solution for the exercise in Lesson 10. The instructions are to create a WinForm application that allows you to basically perform some calculation of the taxable amount, given the amount that can be taxed and the rate of tax. That should be input from text boxes. Also calculate the grand total, add in the shipping amount, and then display the grand total in a message box. So I'll leave you to read the full set of instructions, but that's basically the gist of it. So what I'm going to do is start by creating a new project. File, New Project. I'm going to go to C# Projects, Windows Application, and here I'm going to call this Begin to 10EX, and then click OK. And now I have some controls that I'm just going to paste in here and move them around a little bit. So this will allow me to define the tax rate, and this will allow me to define the taxable amount. So I have TXT taxable amount, TXT tax rate, and to make things look pretty, I've added two little labels for tax rate and taxable amount, and then BTN OK for my button click event. So I'm going to go ahead and double click there and get into the click event. And so really all that I've done up to this point is pretty much the inconsequentials. What I need to do right now is create 4 methods that will do the actual bulk of the work, similar to what we looked at in the lesson text and in the video. So I know that I'm going to need something to calculate the tax amount, something that will allow me to calculate the subtotal, then something that will allow me to calculate the grand total, which is basically just the subtotal plus the shipping amount of $20, and then I'm going to display the result in a message box. So let's get started by creating the shell for 4 methods. So we'll just do this. There'll be a little bit of typing here. And sometimes I do this kind of it's like the equivalent of making an outline before you stand up to talk. I know the methods that I need in my head or the way that I want to design a class, so I'll create some what are called stubbed methods that I'm just going to basically just create what I think would be the structure of each of the methods, and then I go back and I fill in the details later once I've fully fleshed it all out in my mind. This helps me organize my thoughts about how I'm going to approach the work. And finally, we'll do a private void display result. Okay, now this one's going to be easy. All I'm going to do is just display a message box. I'm going to format this to look like currency. And so I've got that part done. So let's start up here at the top, the calculate tax amount. Let me move some things over to the side here. Let's get them out of the way. So when calculating the tax amount, I'm just going to do something very simple like the taxable amount times the tax rate. So here we go, return taxable amount, which we get from our input parameter for this method, times the tax rate. Let's go on to the next one. We need to calculate the subtotal. We know that the subtotal will be the sum of the taxable amount plus the tax amount. So Next, we want to calculate the grand total, which, as we recall from the instructions in this exercise, all we want to do is take our subtotal and add $20 to it, and then we have our display result. So we've created our four methods. Now let's tie all these together with our BTN-OK click event. So here I'm going to create 5 variables to hold the taxable amount and the tax rate, which I retrieve from the text fields on my form. And then I'll call my 3 methods that I just created, the calculate methods: calculate tax amount, calculate subtotal, and calculate grand total, and put those values into 3 variables. And then I'll call the display result to display the grand total. So here we go. I'll need some place to put the taxable amount, some place to put the tax rate. There we go. Somewhere to put the tax amount, some place to put the subtotal, and some place to put the grand total. So I've got 4 variables, all type double. Since we're dealing with currency, that makes sense. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is populate taxable amount and tax rate using my the values that were typed into the text fields. So here we go. Taxable amount equals, since the text field is basically returning values to you in a string, I'm going to have to parse those into a double. So here we go. Parse txt taxable amount dot text, and we'll do the same thing here. Tax rate equals double dot parse txt tax rate dot text. Subtotal equals, whoops, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The first thing we want to do is calculate the tax amount so that we can use it in the subtotal. So our tax amount is going to equal the result returned from our calculate tax amount method. And we'll pass in the 2 variables that we've just put values into, taxable amount and tax rate. So now that I have the tax amount, I can build the subtotal. So subtotal equals calculate subtotal taxable amount, and then we're going to use the tax amount from the previous line. Next thing we're going to do is calculate the grand total. So all I need to do there is call the calculate grand total and pass in the subtotal. And then finally, I'm going to display result. And that should work. So hopefully it made sense as we walk through what each of these do. They're delegating the responsibility of this calculation to the 3 methods that we created to calculate, and then we're delegating the responsibility of displaying to our void method display result. So now let's go ahead and run this and see how it works. Okay. Got nothing that stopped it from running, so that's good. So our tax rate, let's do this as 0.07. And then the taxable amount we'll put 100, so it's an easy calculation we can do in our minds. And we'll click the OK button. And so we come back with 127. So 7% of 100 would be 7. So 107 plus $20 of shipping would give us $127. So it seems like it worked. And we've completed the exercise for this lesson, Lesson 10. I hope that you got pretty close, and thanks for trying.